What's up everybody on YouTube? So in this video, as a die-hard Lord of the Rings fan, I wanted to do a reaction to the new TV show that Amazon has released, Lord of the Rings of Power. Now for those of you who are Lord of the Rings fans and have inspected this a little bit, you've quite possibly seen that this is a 39% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. So I wanted to do a video reacting to this first episode and talking about my thoughts on why I think people may have hated this first episode, the first two episodes, as much as they did, and what Amazon should have done differently.
You have not seen what I have seen.
So, in my opinion, whether you're going to like this TV show or not really depends on your perspective and your expectations as you go into watching it. Now, me going into watching this, I was expecting it to be horrible. Similarly to when Disney took over Star Wars and ruined it and filled it with political content.
I came to this island to die. It's time for the Jedi to end.
I was expecting Amazon to have done the same thing with Lord of the Rings.
Gandalf is gay. No.
So when I started watching it, I was pleasantly surprised to realize, wait, this is actually watchable. It's not filled with politics, and it's actually halfway good storytelling. But if you're going in expecting this to be as good as Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, you are going to be disappointed because it is not as good. So really, whether you enjoy it, in my opinion, is really based on your expectations going in and watching it. Now, apparently a lot of people expected this to be as good as the movies, and it was not, which is why I got a 39% on Rotten Tomatoes. I want to break down the storyline of what happens in this first episode a little bit so we can talk about what went wrong, what should have been different. In my opinion, this episode actually starts out excellently, on a very good foot. Every great story is a story of desire and conflict in pursuing that desire. Whether it's Frodo trying to destroy the ring in Mordor, whether it's the dwarfs traveling to their homelands to retake a mountain from Smaug, every great story is about desire and conflict. And so this episode had to start it off on the right foot by showing us what the main character wants and their conflict in getting that.
My brother gave his life hunting the enemy. His task is now mine.
So the main character is Lady Galadriel, except this is thousands of years before the books, the second age, if I'm not mistaken, of Middle-earth when she is much younger. The evil of Morgoth is spreading and the elves leave Valinor to Middle-earth to combat this growing evil of the orcs. And so Galadriel's brother goes, ends up being killed by Sauron himself, but the elves win the war and in a way become the protectors of Middle-earth. They begin to establish posts throughout the world to protect the citizens and people of Middle-earth. But Galadriel's not satisfied. Her brother was killed and she wants revenge. She is convinced that Sauron is still alive. So she gets together a group of elves and they go on this journey to see if there is evidence of Sauron's existence. She finds evidence and travels back to show the evidence to the High King of the Elves. This is an excellent start to the episode because it establishes this epic quest and tells us exactly what the characters want. In many ways, this is on par with the movies by Peter Jackson and the epicness and just the storytelling in general. It starts out wonderfully. We see cool shots of elves climbing mountains. We see them entering some Morgul palace and fighting a snow troll. It starts off on the right foot. But sadly, as quickly as the movie establishes the central plot line, it kind of throws it away. Galadriel comes back, is congratulated for her efforts, but at the same time the elves are convinced that Sauron is no longer a threat, and they encourage her to travel back to the lands of Valinor, the Undying Lands, and leave Middle-earth. So as quickly as we establish Galadriel's central quest, she's almost instantly beginning to backtrack and step away from what the central storyline even is. And at this point we establish the other plot lines of other characters within the TV show. So we meet a new class of beings known as the Harfoots, which are basically ancestors of hobbits, except for they live in forests and they're more of a nomadic people, but they're pretty much hobbits before hobbits existed. So the main Harfoot is Nori, who is an inquisitive, bright-eyed, energetic young hobbit, probably around the age of Merry or Pippin in Lord of the Rings. We see a little bit of the community life of the Harfoots, but unfortunately the movie really does not establish how the Harfoots have any correlation to the central storyline of Galadriel's quest.
But what does that have to do with anything?
As far as you can presume, they have absolutely none based on what this first episode shows us. The first episode does not show us what the Harfoots desire, what it is that they're pursuing, or conflict on the parts of them as individuals. And so it's nice to see this community life, but it's really harrowing when you establish the central plot line and then throw us into this other plot line that has nothing to do with it, and honestly just distracts from what's happening. We want to see more epic quests of fighting orcs and searching for Sauron. Instead, we see a bunch of hobbits living in the forest and just enjoying community life. It's cute, but it is not what we want as viewers. We want the story to stay focused on what really matters. We also meet another character named Elrond, who is an elf out in the Southlands who is watching over the men who live there because in the past they had an affinity with Morgoth and sided with the darkness. And so the elves are continually watching over them to make sure no evil festers. There begins to be some poisonous power spreading through the land that sickens the cattle and other beings around there. And so Elrond goes on this quest. He's actually more of an interesting character because we actually see what it is that he desires and the conflict with getting that. He's in love with one of the human women, but the elves around him warn him, elves do not intermingle with humans. And so there's actually a conflict there, which makes him an interesting character, but at the same time, same problem as the Harfoots. As of this point, it has absolutely nothing to do with Galadriel's quest. What happens, here are the biggest flaws of this first episode. There is a lack of singular purpose. This first episode establishes what the TV show is actually about very well, but then as quickly as it establishes it, Galadriel backtracks on her quest, and we get these two other plot lines that at the current point have absolutely nothing to do with the main story. I understand it's setting the stage, but it takes a whole 1 hour episode to set the stage in a way that's rather frustrating and annoying because we want to see the main storyline. Instead, we're meeting these other characters who we really don't care about. We just care about Galadriel and Elrond, who's also a character in this show, and we care about them and their struggles and what it is that they're trying to do as individuals.
I'm about to say it.
Say it.
I don't care.
Not saying Harfoots and Elrond don't matter, they just have, at this point, nothing to do with the central quest. At the same time, there's an overwhelming lack of desire on part of the characters. Galadriel and Elrond have desires. Elrond wants love, Galadriel wants revenge, but the other characters really do not desire anything. Elrond does not desire anything. The Harfoots do not desire anything. They're rather just passive characters who just exist within the world, kind of for the purpose of pushing the other characters, but they don't seem to be evolving characters in their own sense. There's no motivation, which creates characters that we don't care about and that are rather uninteresting. So that is the central flaw of this episode. Every plot line ends with a twist at the end, a cliffhanger, and for those of you who do not want a spoiler, you can skip this part, but I'll very briefly explain what happens. A comet falls out of the sky nearby the Harfoots, and they find a man in the middle of a burning pit. Doesn't exactly tell us who he is in this episode. Elrond and Bronwyn, in the search for whatever's causing his poisonous power to spread, find a nearby village burned. Theo, who is Bronwyn's son from former marriage, finds a Morgul blade and begins to display an affinity towards it. And Galadriel, who, on encouragement of Elrond, is traveling back to Valinor, decides to jump out of the ship and renew her quest to find Sauron. So again, these storylines are interesting, but they're not tied together well, and they're not focused. They seem distracted, and the characters are just uninteresting because we don't really know at the end of the day what is it that they actually want beyond Galadriel and Elrond. So as far as beyond that, I know this did not get a 39% because of those problems alone, but really, in my opinion, here are the reasons people hate this TV show so much, and the largest reason is because of the name Amazon. When people think Amazon, they think of a mega liberal company that is going to come in and inject it with political values. I saw this one review where someone was saying, it's woke garbage. That was what I was expecting going in, but there is fortunately no politics in this. It's not woke garbage, and the person was wrong. They were just expecting it to be woke garbage because it is Amazon.
Woke garbage?
So unfortunately, just the name Amazon being attached to this causes the very type of people who love Lord of the Rings to become suspicious and just hate it right off of the cuff. Furthermore, this is a completely new story that was not written out by Tolkien at all. This is something that is based on the world that he's created, based on the characters, but this is a new story written out by people other than Tolkien himself. And so, of course, the story is going to feel different. It's likely going to feel less epic than the absolute grand stories of Tolkien. And just the fact that it's not Tolkien is going to cause people to be suspicious. It's not done by Jackson, so it's going to feel significantly different. So in many ways, people just came in with expectations, and they came in with suspicions. I think in a lot of cases did not allow the TV show to speak for itself. They just had these suspicions and kind of stuck with them regardless of what the show turned out to be. What's interesting at the same time is Amazon, for the first time, has actually added some diversity to the ethnicity of actors within this TV show. For the first time, the Middle-earth franchise has African-American actors. In the past, all the movies had completely Caucasian actors. For me, that honestly is of no concern to me. I don't care what the ethnicity of the actors are as long as the storytelling is good. I just know there are some people watching this who are going to be reminiscent of companies like Disney who diversified the cast of franchises and at the same time use it as an excuse to snub at further classes that they considered elite classes.
Great, another broken white boy for us to fix.
Don't scare me like that, colonizer.
What? My name is Everett.
And so there are some people with that kind of fear in their minds, which is not the case. Thankfully, I'll give a lot of kudos to Amazon. I will, at the end of the day, praise Amazon for creating, in my opinion, a very good, believable world. It's visually beautiful, visually gorgeous, very good acting, and at the same time, they kept it very clean along the line of what Peter Jackson did. No profanity, with the exception of a couple of the British B words that some might consider profanities and some might not. There's actually no sexual content within this. And so I think Amazon did a very good job of trying to appeal to their audience while creating a fresh experience within the franchise. I think people just came in suspicious and just stuck with their suspicions, and there were some storytelling issues. So we'll see later on if Amazon is able to kind of clean up what it's done with this first episode, and unfortunately, teaser for the second one is kind of a continuation of what happened with this first episode. So we'll see. I'm hoping they've got some really interesting storylines going on here, but they've got to refocus everything on that central storyline and let us know what it is that the characters want, what it is that they're pursuing. So with that said, I'd love to hear what you guys think about this episode. If you'd like me to review further episodes after this, put in some comments below. If I get enough feedback, I may end up doing some more further reviews. I'd love to hear what you guys have thought of the season so far. And with that said, I will see you guys later. Peace out.